Welcome councillors, officers, members of the public gallery. Please be upstanding. We, the councillors of Hobsons Bay, recognise that we are privileged to serve a community enriched by diversity. We respect and value our community's backgrounds, customs and beliefs, and declare that we will always act impartially to the best of our skill and judgment. Through our deliberations and our conduct, we will uphold the council values to deliver outcomes that enhance the city of Hobsons Bay. I would like to start this meeting tonight by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional land of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. We recognise the First People's relationship to this land and offer our respect to their elders past and present. Please be seated. This meeting is being live streamed on the council website to enhance public access to the deliberations of council, and it will be available online on council's website subsequent to this meeting. Councillors, there's no apologies for tonight, and so I'll skip straight to disclosures of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare, councillors? No. Thank you. And the minutes of the council meeting held on the 9th of April 2024 have been circulated. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Marston and seconded by Councillor Sutton-Legault. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Next item is councillor questions, and I'll start on my left. Councillor Marston. No questions. Councillor Sutton-Legault.
Very much. Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Got you.
New technology. Through you, Mr. Mayor, could I ask a question regarding the Mechanics Institute? It was the general summary of the plans was put out for public consultation recently. Could I ask what the situation is regarding the current restorations that had been budgeted to happen on the site and where those are up to?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. It is my second day into the role, so I might have to take that on notice, but I am aware that it is in the budget and that we are looking to progress the works there, but I will come back to yourself very shortly with a detailed update on the progress of the project there.
All right, thank you. No more questions, thank you. Oh, sorry, one more, excuse me. We've got council elections later in the year.
Actually, Councillor Sutton-Legault.
Yes.
Mr. CEO might just have some more
excellent.
detail.
Thank you, and sorry, Mr. Mayor. So just in relation to your question, Councillor Sutton-Legault, there has been a range of preliminary works done on the site in terms of planning for the restoration of the cottage, which was part of the original budgeted within this current year's budget. As well, noting that their proposed budget also has a consideration for some additional investment into that facility for a future stage. In terms of the works, council is currently working in conjunction with a group of volunteers related to the men's shed that had worked on the Truganina Explosive Reserves building, and are currently doing some work at the Newport Rowo workshops in restoration works there. So council's been working with a group there to explore how we can work with them to get as much value for money, but also tapping into the expertise and the volunteer community that exists within that space. So that's currently in train. Council will seek to do all of the works associated with compliance and I guess making sure the building is meeting compliance and is sealed correctly, and then the restoration works will continue from there, and I'm happy to provide a further update in relation to timing in future.
And a last question. Council elections are coming up in October. I'd just like to understand the council's role in supporting new or other candidates who might like to run during the election and how we support them.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Sutton-Legault. Yeah, we have just signed on to the VLGA's new councillor program, so that we will be running 8 workshops for prospective new councillors. 3 of those are specifically designed for encouraging female participation in local government. So we're waiting to have confirmed dates, and then our promotional campaign will kick off, and we will hopefully see a whole stack of potential aspiring councillors joining us on election day.
Thanks, Councillor Sutton-Legault. Councillor Hempel.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. A couple of questions. First one, happy for it to be taken on notice, but I attended the Anzac Day dawn service in Williamstown on the 25th of April. The dawn service has now become hugely popular. The crowd was estimated at about 5,000. I don't know, Councillor Marsden was at that event as well. We probably couldn't see because we were at the centre, but it was a fair way back up Ferguson Street. But many people have since told me that they could not hear what was being said during the ceremony because the audio system only served the immediate area around the cenotaph, and they expected better than that. I wonder if, Mr Irving, we could reach out to the Newport RSL to see if council can help next year in maybe putting some more audio systems further up Ferguson Street and probably Nelson Place and the Strand. I know that they probably, the committee at the Newport RSL only have limited resources, and if we could help in some way, whether it's through our grants process or actively getting involved, but I think the residents of Williamstown and Newport in particular, who would have been at that service, would be appreciative if we could do a little bit more to help that out. I'm happy for that to be put on notice. Not expecting a response now. The second question relates to the state budget last week, where I'm aware that in our municipality we have got some funding. I don't know sure whether it comes to us exactly, but it's to do with putting cameras on Black Shores Road, so that once the Westgate Tunnel is opened, that the trucks that might want to divert down our streets can be monitored. And I know that our colleagues in the Maribyrnong City Council have also got some funding on Francis Street for the same purpose. So that's a good thing to have in place, because we'll bear the brunt of it once the tunnel opens. The second one that I'm aware of that we got funding for was the Queen Street footbridge. And I know that the previous council, and particularly councillors Wilson and former councillors Wilson and Gates, were actively involved in that push, along with this council and the ward colleagues, the mayor and Councillor Grima, and even I think during the state election I was down there a bit as well. But we now know that it's being funded. My question, Mr Irving, is do we know how much funding is being allocated yet? And at one point the council proposed actually doing the work, doing the build to try and get this over the line, but the government pay for it. And the second part of that question then is, Do we know whether we would be asked to carry that out or the Department of Transport and Planning?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Hempel. I'm led to believe there's been $12 million allocated to the Queen Street Bridge project. At this point in time, though, we will be liaising with the Department of Transport and Planning to get further details about delivery, responsibilities, etc. But at this point we haven't, but we will reach out to them very shortly to gain more information on how that project will be rolled out. But it is a very good outcome that we have that funding committed and that we can see this project delivered for the community of Altona Meadows and Altona.
Thank you. And I think we were proposing it would be spending less if we did that. So maybe we do the bill, but we take the 12 million and we can spend the rest on something else. Lastly, can I just say that it's nice to see Mr. Irving back on board here. We sort of acknowledged that at the start. I know he's been here before in a managerial role, but it's good to have him back as a director. Congratulations.
Agree, Councillor Hempel, and it's lovely to have you back in the room as well, Councillor Sutton-Legault as Deputy Mayor. I have one question myself, but I'll hold and pass to, at the end, Councillor Breville.
Council officers are always very prompt in responding to my questions, so I don't have any questions, but I thank them for their awesome work. Thanks.
Councillor Grimmer. And Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a series of questions. First 4 questions relate to the matter of asbestos in our community. Question 1, through you, Mr. Mayor, how many parks in Hobsons Bay were confirmed to contain asbestos?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Callender. So 23 sites were investigated in total, and 15 sites were required for remediation due to asbestos being present.
Thank you for your response, Mr. Irving. Next question again through you, Mr. Mayor. It's been over a month since some of the locations were first confirmed to contain asbestos, and a number of locations such as the GJ Hoskin Reserve in Altona North still remain fenced off and closed. How many parks still remain closed within our community, and when do you foresee that they'll be remediated and reopened?
Thank you for the question. So 4 sites still remain closed, including Don McLean Reserve, Crofts Reserve, Altona Coastal Park and Hoskin Reserve. Each of these sites are being attended to with remediation and reinstatement works due to be complete by June 2024.
Thank you. Third question, how much has council spent to date on the testing, closure of parks and remediation to date? And how much does council envisage the total cost to be once all sites are remediated in full?
In terms of expenditure to date, on fencing and hygiene sits at around the $70,000 mark. Based on results that have been received from investigations, costs associated with removal and reinstatement to those parks that require them could cost anywhere between $130,000 and $150,000, taking the total expenditure bill but anywhere between $200,000 to $220,000. Once this program of works is complete in June, costs will be more fully understood.
Thank you. And final question on the topic of asbestos before I move on to a different topic. Who's going to wear those costs? Will it be our ratepayers?
At this stage, all costs have been borne by council as the responsible land manager in accordance with the current EPA contamination management requirements. However, officers are doing work, and if we can clearly identify a connection or nexus with either a contractor or a supplier that has not fulfilled its contractual obligations, officers will be looking to pursue recovery of costs accordingly.
Thank you, Mr. Irving. So next question, completely different topic. Can you provide an update on any work that's been conducted to implement pedestrian crossings on Blackshaws Road?
As part of planned developments along Blackshaws Road, a number of pedestrian improvement works are proposed, and these all relate to developments in the area, and so they will be subject to timing for development in as occurs. These will include works at the intersection of the Broadway, a new intersection near 141 Blackshaw's Road, and the intersection with Sutton Street. Pedestrian refuges are also planned at some of these locations.
Thank you, Mr Irving. Through you again, Mr Mayor, could you please provide an update on the intersection on Fabric Drive and Blackshaw's Road? This intersection has had some public interest in the past. When do you foresee that this will actually be built?
Thank you again for the question, Councillor. A works in kind agreement is currently being developed for Mirvac to complete this work, but based on discussions that are ongoing, it is expected that work should commence in July 2024 and expected to take approximately 9 months to be delivered. But we'll continue to have those discussions and seek for those works to occur.
Thank you, Mr Irving. Again, through you, Mr Mayor, can you provide an update on the outdoor dining spaces for the Pearce Street precinct in light of the upcoming budget being finalised?
Thanks, Councillor Calendar, for the question. Following on from your resolution of the Council meeting of 14th November, which is agenda item 8.3.1, staff are working through the future arrangements for outdoor training in the parlours at Pearce Street and other locations across the city. The City Infrastructure Director and I will come back to you outside of the meeting with the next step regarding the footpath works you've raised on Pearce Street precinct. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Lunn. Next question, Mr Mayor, relates to Techno Park. So if there's a conflict of interest.
Do you want to, Councillor Grimmer, do you want to just declare it?
I'll be leaving the room. I've got a conflict. I have a family member who does maintenance work at Techno Park Homes. Thank you.
We'll just give it a moment.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's a few days off the anniversary that the residents of Techno Park received the original letter that asked them to cease residential use on site. Could you please provide an update on the matter?
Thank you again, Councillor Calendar. On the 5th of April this year, I wrote an open letter to all people at Techno Park advising that changes that were made by the state government in February have changed the rights of all Victorians to demonstrate existing use rights across Victoria and the ability for people to apply for a certificate to demonstrate their existing use. These may have been changes that impact Techno Park. I also confirmed in that letter that no further enforcement action was being progressed at this time. Council has been working with its legal advisors to assess all elements of Council's role at Techno Park, which includes planning, building, safety, emergency management, and of course the rights of the community. I'm unable to give you a legal update here in the Chamber, but on consideration of my April letter, in the coming weeks further communication will be provided to people at Techno Park, their lawyers and other parties who have a role in this complicated case. Thank you.
Thanks for the response, Ms Lunn. No further questions, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Calendar. We'll just wait till Councillor Grimmer returns. One question from me, and I'll put it to our CEO. Councillor Hempel touched on a couple of the items funded in the budget, which took place last week in Victoria. Of course, the federal budget is tonight. Could you provide an update, Mr CEO, more generally on any items that the community should be aware of included in that budget as it relates to Hobsons Bay?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for the question. So to the best of my knowledge, there may be elements that are yet to be understood as to the impacts of the budget directly to Hobsons Bay, but as I'm aware currently, the following items are contained within the state government budget. So firstly, funding for the Westgate Punt and the Port Arlington ferry services, which obviously has an impact on Hobsons Bay. As mentioned, the construction of the shared bike and pedestrian path at Laverton Creek, Queen Street, Altona, and maintenance funding for the Westgate Bridge. More generally, investment in early childhood, which has an impact within Hobsons Bay, and also transport, $39 million allocated towards Melbourne's West for new and improved bus services from the Growth Area Corridor Infrastructure Contribution Fund. There's another range of items, but one in particular relating specifically to Hobsons Bay is the Newport Storm Football Club received $200,000 for new nets. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr CEO. And echoing Councillor Hempel, the Queen Street pedestrian cycling bridge has been a significant advocacy item for a long time, and so I do want to acknowledge that contribution from the state government, which I think responds to advocacy over a significant period of time on the part of council, but also on the part of the community. That concludes councillor question time, and the next item is public question time. And the public question time segment provides an opportunity for the public to ask questions related to the items on the agenda of the council meeting or any other matter within council's responsibility. Questions must be put in writing and be received by 12 p.m. the day prior to the council meeting. Questions received after this time will be responded to in writing by the appropriate council officer. In accordance with subsection 13.1 of the Hobsons Bay Governance Rules, 20 minutes has been allocated for public question time, with individual responses not exceeding 2 minutes each. In accordance with Rule 13.1.14, a maximum of 3 public questions may be submitted per meeting by a member of the public. And in accordance with Rule number 13.1.11 of the Hobsons Bay Governance Rules, the person who submitted the question must be present in the public gallery during public question time for their question to be read out. There have been a number of public questions submitted for tonight, some of which are not within council's power to respond, some are in conflict with our governance rules, and some will not be addressed based upon legal advice. We have sought to respond to as many questions as we can. Is Susan Miller with us tonight? We'll respond to Susan subsequently in writing. Yamama. Hi Yamama, welcome. Yamama, you asked 3 questions. 2 of those can't be read out tonight as your questions refer to international matters, which council can't enter into as their responsibility for the federal government. Regarding your question about council's procurement activities, this policy is due to be reviewed at the commencement of the new council term, following the local government elections later this year. Your views have been noted and will be considered in more detail at the time of this review. With regards to the existing policy, there is a specific section of the policy devoted to social procurement and the purchase of ethical goods to support equitable trade, and a requirement to meet all legislation, which also includes a specific section on social procurement. Julie White. Hi Julie, welcome. Julie has 3 questions. Firstly, is artificial intelligence or automated lifeguard or drowning prevention software, such as, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Julie, LinkSight, software currently being used, trialled or planned to be used at Bayfit or Laverton Leisure Centre? And if so, what technology, how does it function, and when has it or will be introduced or trialled? And the council officer's response is AI systems are not currently used at Bayfit Leisure Centre or Laverton Swim and Fitness Centre. Council will continue to liaise with its centre operator, Bluefit Recreation, in relation to the best practice management of its facilities, in line with the guidelines for safe pool operations. Julie's second question is, when did council become aware that Bluefit is using LinkSight AI lifeguard software at Windy Hill Fitness Centre in Essendon? And given that the Royal Lifesaving Society of Australia has yet to release draft guidelines on the safe, responsible use of AI or automated lifeguard technology, what steps has council taken to ensure Bluefit safety practices in Hobsons Bay will comply with occupational health and safety laws and with appropriate consideration of the myriad safety, ethical, privacy and human rights requirements of the use of AI or automated technology? Council Officer's response reads, Council meets regularly with Bluefit Recreation as the operator of Bayfit Leisure Centre and Laverton Swim Fitness Centre to review the management and operation of these facilities. Any implementation of new technology will be considered by the operator in line with the guidelines for safe pool operations. Julie's final question is, has legal advice or consultation with the community been obtained or undertaken, or will Council obtain or undertake such advice and consultation before making any decision about whether AI or automated lifeguard or drowning prevention technology could be an acceptable, justified, safe or responsible use of technology in a council-owned facility? Council Officer's response reads, AI systems are not currently used at Bayfit Leisure Centre or Laverton Swim and Fitness Centre. Council will continue to liaise with its centre operator Bluefit Recreation in relation to the management of its facilities in line with the guidelines for safe pool operations. Is John O'Hagan. Hi John, welcome. Pardon me. John has two questions. Firstly, in the September 2023 Council meeting, Council said that they did not remove the Hobsons Bay Caravan Park, which housed community members on industrial zoned land for more than 30 years, because, quote, the caravan park operated with an applicable planning permit. In fact, the caravan park operated illegally in the industrial zone due to the existing use rights. Why did Council give this wrong answer? John, there's a bit to work through with that one, and we want to get a response right. And so we will be coming back to you with a response in due course, but not for this evening. So officers are well aware and prioritising it. John's second question is, how long should a Hobsons Bay resident expect to wait for a response from the Mayor or councillors when they contact them about an issue of concern? Response reads, thank you for your question regarding the timeframes for responding to resident correspondence to the Mayor and councillors. As the Mayor, I often work with council officers to provide a response in a timeframe that's appropriate to the type and complexity of the matters at hand. Sometimes inquiries need to be dealt with by council officers and not by the Mayor and councillors where the matter is not one that councillors can be involved with, such as planning enforcement activity. I know that a number of members of the community have emailed councillors and myself regarding Tetno Park Drive, and council officers provided an open letter on the 5th of April that sets out council's current position on enforcement matters. Everyone living at Tetno Park Drive has a copy of this letter, and this was sent from officers because it's an operational matter that councillors cannot influence. Rosa McKenna. Hi, Rosa. Rosa's question is, the lease arrangement on Mary Street Reserve Spotswood changed in 2021. The timeline for community engagement shows consultation commenced in June 2022 and final design was endorsed by Council in September 2023, with work planned to commence in 2024. In the interim, the previous leaseholder retains exclusive use of public land while other users have been relocated. Please explain why this work has not commenced and how public land is still inaccessible to the community to use. And the council officer's response reads, the works that are planned at Mary Street Reserve are subject to obtaining a planning permit. The planning permit application is subject to consideration through VCAT. Construction is scheduled to commence in late 2024, subject to outcomes from the VCAT process. Councillors, that concludes public question time, and thank you for your questions. The next item is petitions and joint letters. Councillors, do we have any petitions or joint letters to be tabled? Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a petition to table. Happy to read out the suggested motion. That Council 1 receives and notes the petition titled Hobson Bay City Council Stop Hiking Our Rates. And item 2, subject to a review of the petition in accordance with the Hobson Bay governance rules, receives a further report on this matter at a future council meeting.
It's on screen, Councillor Callender, the motion that you're happy to move.
Looks fine, Mr Mayor.
And so I am seeking a seconder. Councillor Sutton-Legault. Just before I go into debate, any questions from councillors? Councillor Callender is the mover.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll just read the petition. It says, residents are impacted significantly by cost of living pressures due to higher inflation and 13 interest rate rises. A reduction in rates will help ease the cost of living crisis. Hobsons Bay City Council's flip-flop on its financial projections exemplifies this urgency. Despite an initial forecast of $134 million for the 2024-25 fiscal year, the council now eyes a heightened revenue of $136 million. This $2 million uptick is unacceptable, especially considering the additional burden of rates escalating beyond prior estimations. Furthermore, council will receive additional rate revenue from new properties which are not subject to the rates cap and fall outside the current draft budget. To rectify this, the council must wield its fiscal prowess by trimming operational costs by 1.5%. This prudent move would yield a $2 million efficiency, curbing the impending rate hike without compromising service quality or availability. Background, I submitted a petition to freeze the rates in 2020 when COVID lockdowns began. At a time of uncertainty, my petition was not entertained even after it accumulated a few hundred signatures. That's all, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Callender. Councillor Sutton-Legault. Yeah, so is there anyone against the motion? And are there any other speakers? Councillor Callender, go to the vote. Yeah, I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. The next item is 8.1.1, Chief Executive's Office's report on operations. Councillors, are there any questions? Seeking a mover. Councillor Grimmer to move and Councillor Brifford to second. Councillor Grimmer.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. As always, I enjoy reading the CEO report. It's for all ages and all abilities. And some shining examples are Anzac Day, which I attended with Mayor Tyler at Seabrook. We saw a war veteran, a hero, who actually contributed to this special day and spoke about his experience and brought the community to life and just gave us a really beautiful day, the Seabrook community. It was really lovely, and I've heard other Anzac Days were also a great joy as family members who have served. These days are important, and it's important that we must not forget. I'm also thrilled to hear that the libraries, our safe place and our learning space, is increasing with numbers of borrowing and just attending. That's really great. Also parenting programs that includes sleep support, breastfeeding support, and first-time parenting and guardian groups. I think that's great that we're seeing more services being provided in our great community, and it's also in our neighbour council. So that's also great. And also youth counselling and youth activities are being provided. And I'm also thrilled that our community space, the buildings that we own, are getting utilised, and the demand is huge with the booking. So that's just a fantastic outcome. And finally, I always love the farmers market. It's another place to connect with our great community. I've gone often, and just to the last farmers market with Councillor Matt Tyler, the Mayor. We speak to the community, we enjoy the fresh produce, our families love it, the entertainment, the vibe, it's just wonderful. So it's great to see more things happening in all our community, and we have all the fair share in all the municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. Councillor Briffa.
Thank you. Always great seeing a very detailed CEO's report. So many things have been happening for the benefit of our community over the last month and a bit. I'd like to really congratulate and thank the staff for their amazing efforts. I participated went to the LG Pro Awards with a number of council officers a few weeks ago, which was an amazing event. I'd like to congratulate all the winners. Great to see wonderful things happening across local government across Australia. Hobsons Bay was a finalist in one of those categories. Unfortunately, we didn't win. Technically, we didn't win on the night, but I certainly think that we won. And I think what we were awarded for, what we were finalists for, was certainly worthy of a win. And I'd like to again thank all the council officers for their work in the LGBTIQA+ space, particularly in those Rainbow Awards. They were just fantastic. And I love that we did that for the whole Western Suburbs. Also want to note and thank governance staff for their work. I know that they work under some really difficult, challenging circumstances, especially over the last 18 months. And really just in a public place, just want to say thank you to them for their work, their efforts, their dedication to us and our community. Also, I'm sure other councillors have probably received communications from residents actually commending us for our animal management staff. And it's lovely. And in the last month, I think I've received at least 2 from separate residents thanking us and for the amazing staff and their commitment to animal management. And I know firsthand because of I've got a couple of cats and a beautiful dog named Ollie from the council. I just want to really thank them, and I note that they're mentioned in this report. It's sad when I see that, cats, 38 were impounded, 0 released. 7 dogs impounded and 2 released. But it is great when I see that, 6 animals were returned to their owners by council officers, and I know that we do our absolute level best to return pets, family members to their families as quickly as possible and show them a lot of care while they're with us. Libraries, what can I say? Libraries have been in the attention of a lot of people in my wonderful Rainbow community as of late, and thankfully, unlike Cumberland Shire, we do have LGBTIQA+ resources and have had for many years in our libraries, and I'm really pleased to hear that, pleased about that. Want that to continue. The Hobsons Bay Pride Community Liaison Group went out for advertising for members, and we had a record amount of people wanting to join, which is an absolute testament to the council, but also to our community and people wanting to actually engage with the council in support of our LGBTIQA+ community. Other things that I'll just briefly mention, Kim Reserve upgrade. It is great. Every time I drive past and see more and more progress there, I can't wait for that to be complete and actually go for a visit, obviously attend the opening. It'll be great and long overdue, and I'm also obviously looking forward to the works once they start at the hockey club as well. That's probably enough from me, but Mr. CEO, thank you. Thanks for all the staff's work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. Any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers? Councillor Sutton, go.
Thank you. Yes, echo my colleagues' words. It's always an extensive report that only scratches the surface, really, of all the work that happens. But I wanted to acknowledge the Heritage Trail and the trail map that was created to help people understand the history a little bit more of Hobsons Bay. And there were lots of creative opportunities mentioned that happened right through this period, from markets, symphonies, and it just shows the diversity, the creative diversity of our community. We had 50 workshops taking place in Wood Street Arts Centre. We had an HB tour bus and business networking on a boat. So we had a little bit of everything. The report also makes mention of the Maddox and Champion Roads level crossing removals. And even though we've had several public and direct discussions regarding this, unfortunately it still seems to be that we're heading toward a foregone conclusion with no real opportunity for change, even with the high level of community outcry over the closure, particularly of Champions Road. We don't seem to be able to make a dent in getting our point across, even though there's a considerable amount of work happening with trader groups and community members who are really making their displeasure known, but we will continue to fight that battle. But overall, yes, thank all the staff for their efforts, and thank you for all the detail in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault. Any other councillors like to speak to the report? I'll come back to you, Councillor Grimmer, as the mover.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd also like to acknowledge that we have services for disability and age care as well for age assessments and Meals on Wheels, which is fantastic, in groups. And also I'd like to acknowledge and thank the CEO and the rest of the staff who do an amazing job. We just see part of it, so I really deeply appreciate your time and efforts, because it's just making the community stronger and greater, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. With that, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Just a couple of reflections from me on indulgence. Councillor Grimmer, Anzac Day is a huge turnout in Altona, and consistent with what Councillor Hempel said, it's really encouraging that people are turning out, including many schools, to remember those who have served. And then secondly, I joined the Hobsons Bay Interagency meeting, and for those who are not familiar, these are folks who oftentimes provide crisis support for people here locally, do work that's unseen and crucial. And I just want to, in a public forum, consistent with what Councillor Griffiths said about acknowledging our staff, acknowledge a number of folks who support people doing it really hard, and oftentimes don't get seen, because inherently that work is sort of, to support people in a dignified way, and oftentimes that necessitates privacy. And so I just wanted to acknowledge the contribution that those people make to our community. And next item is 8.2.1, third quarter financial report for period ended 31 March. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Sutton-Legault.
Thank you very much. I have a question relating to, it's in fact, let me get my pages together, mentioned in the summary that there will be a $1.2 million saving from the solar rollout program, and that is intended to be quarantined for a future project. Just ask the question why we've chosen that path, given that there's not even an appropriate project in the 10-year capital works program, and there are other projects that need funding this year or sooner, and why we wouldn't allocate the funding now.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Sutton-Legault. When Council chose to invest in the solar project initially, it was based on a return on investment calculation that we were aiming to achieve. Where we've landed with the project is that the highest return on investment is to pause at the point where that saving can be made. The intention would be to invest that $1.2 million into activities that would yield the highest return on investment, while at the same time reducing emissions for council. So effectively, there's a range of projects that we would be considering now that those funds have been cleared as a saving. And that's why they haven't been previously allocated. So there are a range of projects which can be discussed with council outside of this meeting that are in line with the principles that were set out in trying to reduce council's emissions towards zero.
May I just follow up on that? Would they be new projects or existing projects?
Thank you for the follow-up question. So there are existing projects that are itemised within things like our climate change action plan, also within our Towards Zero emissions waterfall, which effectively is the series of projects that contribute towards reducing council's emissions. So things like our proposals to install energy efficient street lighting to much of our network, as well as building retrofits and additional solar on buildings that are capable of being able to install them. So they're existing projects, but ones that haven't been brought forward given the focus on the virtual energy network and the solar rollout that we've been doing.
Any other questions, councillors? I'm seeking a mover. Councillor Callender, and a seconder. Councillor Sutherland, go. Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is literally just to acknowledge the difference between forecast and actual revenue and expenditure for the year ended 31st of March, for the period ended 31st of March 2024. Just scrolling through the report, I'll call out a number of items. Rates and charges are expected to be $1.4 million higher than what was originally forecast, and that's predominantly due to property development of $673,000, interest income on rates of $300,000, payments in lieu of rates $223,000, and supplementary rates $100,000, waste charges $43,000, and a reduction in rebates of $18,000. Statutory fees and fines are expected to be $291,000 under budget, but an interesting thing to note is that there is an increase in relation to parking infringements of $52,000 and building and construction compliance infringements of $60,000. It is predominantly offset by depreciation, but depreciation's literally only an accounting entry and doesn't have any impact to cash, as it is a non-cash item. I won't bore people with the details. It is an accounting report. It's not something that excites everybody, but I recommend that you scroll through, have a look. There's some interesting items in there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Callender. And Councillor Sutherland, go.
Thank you. It's important to see what we're doing with the various projects and programs that we have in place, and we're coming to the sort of sharp end of the year. We're at March quarterly forecast review. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, the forecast result for the Capital Works program shows a net saving of $1.2 million, and that relates to the solar rollout program. And it is good to see that we are getting some saving, but I would also think sometimes it's good to hold on to those savings rather than spend them again. We have a strong operational surplus, and that goes into our capital expenditure, and we monitor those results and make sure that we're on track with the various projects that we have in place, and it seems that we are working very closely to the targeted timelines that we had in mind. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor Sutherland, go. Any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers? Councillor Callender, I'll come back to you as the mover. Yep. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Next item is the third quarter Council Plan Initiatives Progress Report. Councillors, are there any questions? I'm seeking a mover. Councillor Sutherland, go, and a seconder. Councillor Marston. Councillor Sutherland, go as the mover.
This is the third quarter Council Plan Initiative Progress Report. And each year the Council's performance is measured against several indicators, including the progress of projects that have been listed as Council major initiatives in the budget. This progress report provides an update on how we're progressing on committed projects and obviously goes alongside the financial report. Council nominated 19 initiatives to support the delivery of Council Plan, including 16 initiatives that are multi-year projects. And to date, Council has completed 3 major initiatives and progressed the remaining 16 major initiatives to plan. So it's good it's good to see where we're up to with these various projects, and many of them are large projects, such as the Better Places Brooklyn and Altona North, and Alma Avenue Reserve, Altona Meadows, establishment of the Affordable Housing Trust, the Wetland Centre development, which I'm very happy that we have progressed, even though we don't have the funding, state or federal government money funding for that, and the urban forest strategy that has, I think, now been concluded, and even though I can still see trees being planted all over the place, which is fantastic. So there's a considerable number of major capital works programs that are either coming to conclusion or really just getting underway. And I commend, given all the changes in staff lately at the council, there have been some senior director changes over the past few months. It's good to see that these projects are still keeping to their timelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault. Councillor Marston.
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other speakers? Councillor Sutton-Legault, put it to the vote? Yeah. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Councillors, next item is 8.3.1, Victorian Energy Collaboration. Any questions? Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few questions. First one through you. Why is council only signing up for the street lighting and not for all electricity consumption?
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Callender. Council's prioritising the VEN as its key emissions and cost-saving initiative for energy use. So streetlights aren't a part of the VEN, which is obviously sort of subject of lots of previous consideration by the council. Streetlights are sort of on their own network. We can't use the VEN energy for that right now. So therefore, we have to purchase a separate electricity contract, which we're proposing is from VACO. That doesn't interact with the VEN, but we're proposing this separate piece that would be green energy just to fund the streetlights.
Thanks for the response, Ms Lunn. Second question through you, Mr. Mayor. A 5-year contract seems like a long time. How does this compare to other energy contracts that council has had or still has, contracts held by other councils for similar items? And what are the risks and benefits of such a long contract in this instance?
Again, through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Callender. That was a really good question. Councils frequently sign contracts for services such as waste and recycling and cleaning for 5 years or more. Some of our contracts are 7 years or above. So it's not unusual for this to be a 5-year period. The VECO contract is an existing arrangement that commenced a couple of years ago and is set to expire in 2030. And the electricity market is pretty volatile. So the contract provides council with the benefit of having pricing certainty for the next 5 years. So that's the advantage of why we're proposing this. It gives us certainty at the same price for green energy as it would do to the existing contract that isn't green energy. So there's always a risk that energy prices will change or fall, but during this, we think that this is the best opportunity for council and that we think that bargains like this will be really hard for us to find in the future. So it's a good deal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Third question, how much will the purchase of carbon offsets cost?
Councillor, so through the Mayor, thank you. In the first year, we've estimated that it will be around $180,000 or so to purchase Australian offsets so that council can be fully carbon zero. So this is an estimate. Obviously, these prices change, but this is our current projection based on what we're looking at now to fully offer that just to zero, using fully Australian accredited offsets, not a combination of overseas or Australian. Again, the market for carbon offsets as energy is pretty variable, so we reconfirm this through the next budget process. As the VEN progresses and that we save more energy over time from our own solar direct actions and from other energy initiatives we have, the amount of offsets we'll have to buy should go down over time. Obviously, we can't guarantee what those offsets will cost to purchase in the future, but compared to a potentially do-nothing scenario, we will have to purchase less offsets because we've taken this action in history.
Thank you, Ms Lunn. No further questions, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Calendar. Councillors, any other questions? I'll go to Councillor Marston and then to Councillor Sutton. Ah.
Thank you very much for that.
You're fine.
Could I ask, does the Climate Active Carbon Neutral accreditation rely on the purchasing of offsets?
Councillor, I'm sorry, I don't actually know the answer to that, and I'm not sure whether the CEO has any further information. I'm not clear on the answer to that.
So if it's helpful, so one of the things that we're saying is that the remaining emissions can be reduced through the purchase of offsets, and council can then apply for the Climate Active Carbon Neutral accreditation. So I wasn't sure whether we could apply for that purely through the renewable electricity for the street lighting, or we need to buy the offsets in order to get the accreditation.
Councillor, thank you. That clarifies. Yes, we do. To achieve a carbon neutral status, we need to purchase the offsets because we're unable to be carbon neutral completely under our own action. But yes, so we do need them, but the cost of that will decrease over time.
Okay, and a follow-up question, can we purchase offsets within Hobsons Bay? Do we have to go outside of Hobsons Bay to buy offsets?
Councillor, yes, we do at the moment. So we wouldn't be able to purchase all the offsets we need from projects necessarily within Hobsons Bay. Projects might include things like tree planting elsewhere in Australia, or direct action like investing in credits in hydrocarbon or other solar projects. We haven't identified that there are enough carbon neutral projects within Hobsons Bay at the moment that would be able to do it, but it certainly would be Australian as opposed to going overseas like some other councils have done.
So would it be possible to investigate further whether there's opportunity to buy those offsets in Hobsons Bay?
I think that's a really good question. Yes, we would do that. I think that's a good question. We would do that when we're considering what their purchasing would be in the future.
And just one final question. What is the value of becoming accredited with the Climate Active Carbon Neutral? What is the benefit of that accreditation?
I think it's a sustainability benefit as always as an ethical benefit for the council, and I think it's something that we've committed to in previous resolutions and strategies.
So it's more about acknowledging the fact that we are carbon neutral?
Yes, yeah, and it's a formal accreditation that certifies that we have done this in the way that meets the requirements.
I see.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. That's it.
Thanks, Councillor Sutton-Legault. Any other questions? Mover in Councillor Marston and seeking a seconder. Councillor Sutton-Legault. Councillor Marston.
Thank you, Mayor Tyler. I move that Council enters into a 5.5-year contract with Red Energy Proprietary Limited to provide renewable electricity for street lighting, and that we delegate to the CEO the authority to sign the renewable electricity supply agreement. I move that we delegate authority to council officers to vary the electricity load purchase within the constraints of the procurement policy, and note that Hobsons Bay City Council will be climate active carbon neutral through the purchase of Australian offsets, as alluded to by my colleagues' questions. It's important, I think, we invest in Australian offsets, and I think it's an excellent initiative to look locally, as close to home as possible. We've got a lot of assets in Hobsons Bay. We've got, as people know, a real determination to plant as many trees as we can. And where we can, attract sustainable and renewable energy industries to Hobsons Bay to replace the ageing carbon infrastructure, which is now being dismantled as we speak. The contract represents a significant step towards our commitment to achieving net zero emissions. By switching to renewable electricity for street lighting, we will reduce our corporate emissions by approximately 12,000 tonnes over the life of the contract. The flexibility and pricing of the contract are competitive with coal-fired electricity, ensuring that we're making a sustainable choice without incurring additional costs. Some may have concerns about the long-term financial implications or the reliability of renewable energy sources, but the contract includes measures to ensure pricing stability and flexibility, and it aligns with our broader environmental goals and responsibilities, as has been discussed in the questions prior to this item. It's our preference, and always has been as council, to take direct action where we can to reduce emissions and thereby operating costs with our buildings, with our power to influence or to build further on the virtual energy network. it's a popular move, it's a sensible move, it's a common sense thing to do to reduce emissions and to reduce costs to the residents of Hobsons Bay. So I urge you all to support this motion as a crucial investment in our sustainable future.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Councillor Sadler as the seconder.
Thank you. Yes, I support us moving to a renewable electricity for our street lighting. I think it is an area which can be easily overlooked in all of the different outputs that we have around the municipality, and I'm happy to support the motion in the sense that in the recommendation that I do hope that we can move away from relying on any kind of carbon offsets. I think that is obviously our goal, that we don't have to take any offsets of any kind. Australian offsets do have a better reputation than many international offsets, but I would hope that we can get to a point of being carbon neutral through the work that we're doing, putting a lot of effort into that, and maybe that $1.2 million will help. And so I support the initiative and hope to hear back from the officers if we can identify opportunities for investment within Hobsons Bay that would meet that offset requirement, but otherwise commend the recommendation to my colleagues.
Thanks, Councillor Sadler. Are there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not necessarily against as such, but I do have a number of concerns. I'm comfortable with entering into the contract with Red Energy to supply electricity for street lighting. I, however, am not comfortable with the purchase of the carbon offsets, regardless of whether they're purchased overseas at a fraction of the cost or in Australia at a premium, because I really do not believe that it will make Hobsons Bay City Council carbon neutral, potentially on a piece of paper, but not in reality. There are so many articles that talk to what has been deemed the scam that is the carbon offset system. Numerous ABC and Guardian articles that referred to Australia's carbon credit scheme as a sham, I'm using their words, with a new major study labelling the system a failure that is doing little, if anything, to help address climate. Authors of the study include Andrew McIntosh, an environmental law professor at the Australian National University and a former head of carbon credit integrity insurance body. He described it not only as a sham, but a fraud on taxpayers, consumers and the environment. Internationally, it's been disclosed that more than 90% of rainforest carbon offsets by the biggest certifier are worthless, and that's as published by The Guardian, who also published the statement that the majority of offset projects that have sold the most carbon credits are likely junk, according to analysis by Corporate Accountability. Last year, Hobsons Bay City Council sent a number of delegates, as an example, to Japan on a trip that was labelled a junket by media.
Relevance, point of order.
I think it's...
Just hold for 1 minute. This point of order has been called. Councillor Marston, your point of order?
Is that it doesn't concern itself with the
Just
contract.
in the governance rules, which point of order?
Oh, sorry. Has someone got a written copy? Okay. All right. Stand by. No, that's all right. I'll find it. That's all right. Thanks. I've got it. Okay, so I refer, Mayor, to 8.18.3.2, which is that the point made about the international trip is irrelevant frivolous or vexatious, specifically irrelevant and vexatious, being not concerned with the matter at hand, but rather a personal attack on other councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. I'll uphold the point of order based on relevance. And Councillor Callender, if you can just remain relevant to the item at hand.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I disagree with that. I think talking about plane trips is highly relevant to the topic
I'm
of
talking
climate change.
Talking specifically, if you just
So
let me...
again, I don't object to your ruling, and again, I'd like that noted in the minutes, 8.21.5, that I object to your ruling.
And we'll record that in the minutes.
Thank you.
And to be clear, I'm upholding the point of order based on relevance, based on the commentary from the media that you've shared tonight.
Okay,
and so
so-
that's the item that I'm upholding. And if you can remain relevant to the item in front of us.
So
it'd be helpful.
just to clarify, so you're asking that I cease talking about trips to Japan?
No, that's not what I said.
Okay, so I can talk about trips to Japan?
I asked you, I'm not going to tell you what to talk about and what not to talk about.
Okay.
I just asked you to remain relevant to the item in front of us.
Okay, so, okay, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll continue to proceed. Carbon wasn't even a consideration when those trips to Japan...
Point of order. Vexatious and irrelevant.
Councillor Marston, can you just be specific about which...
Yeah, the same one that I just quoted.
No, which aspect of what Councillor's Calendar's talking about?
Councillor Callender is referring to an item concerned with a friendship and Sister City Alliance. It has nothing to do with the purchasing of carbon offsets or the other elements of the resolution, and is therefore irrelevant. I think it strays into vexatious territory, holding to attempting to smear another councillor as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so I've ruled on the media commentary. What Councillor Callender is sharing does relate to carbon, and so I'm going to allow that to proceed. I think it is relevant. I just ask you, Councillor Callender, to remain focused on the substance and not on media commentary that you've shared, and certainly not on other councillors.
And I haven't mentioned anybody's name, just to
Agreed.
respond
And so I'm
to
saying that-
Councillor Marsden. I haven't mentioned anyone's name or any relationship or anything, simply a flight.
Yeah, and so,
I haven't targeted a person.
yeah,
I haven't mentioned anybody's name.
yeah.
Let's just talk about...
So Councillor Callender, if you keep going.
Let's go.
You've got the floor.
Yeah. So according to online calculations, a flight to Japan per person is the equivalent of carpooling for almost 3 years. So given the ongoing investment by Council into renewable energy and recent studies into the lack of legitimacy in the carbon offset scheme, I'd personally prefer the money used to buy credits to be reinvested directly back into our community and provide a benefit to the residents who live here. And as part of this, I'd like to, before I do wrap up, Mr Mayor, I'd ask that in accordance with Governance Rule 8.7.2, that the motion be put to the vote in 2 parts. And I ask that item 4 be separated out for a separate vote. I'll leave that to you for your consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Callender. I'm just going to seek advice on that before going to other speakers in terms of how we then manage the subsequent debate. Councillors, will proceed with the debate on the entire motion, and then at the point of the vote, we can split the first three and then take the vote on the subsequent last point. And so, are there any other Councillor Grimmer?
Recognising what Councillor Callender has said, I'll accept that, but can we speak to another, if we're going to change it, could we speak about it in another briefing or something like that? Because I'd like to get more resources and information, please.
So to be clear, there's no change.
There's a two-part now. That's
Yeah.
different. That is a different vote in my view.
It's a different vote.
It is, in my opinion, it is, and I believe that we need to speak more about this in another briefing, please. 'cause
So if you'd like to move a deferral motion, you can move a deferral motion. Otherwise, I'm going to be asking for other speakers to the motion.
Yes, can I seek advice? That's not going to affect any contract or anything?
I'm happy to, given the circumstances, I'm happy to take that as a question to officers. Is
Thank
there
you,
going to be
Meg.
any impact from splitting the motion in terms of any contracts or anything?
Through the Mayor, thank you, councillors. The first points of motion regarding the signing of the contract is time sensitive, but the matters regarding the carbon offset, should councillors choose to vote that way, can be considered in the future.
Mayor Tyler, can I say that with the carbon, I'd like to speak more about that in the briefing. I've attended briefings and we've discussed this, but I'd like more now. And since it's gone to a different, in my view, in my opinion, it has gone to a different vote. So can we talk about that in another briefing, please? Thank you, Mayor Tyler.
Okay, I'll just seek advice.
Mr Mayor.
So, Councillor Grimmer, the advice I've received is that the governance rules are largely silent on, given the circumstances, on whether a deferral motion would be permitted. And so, again, the advice I've received is we'd be happy for you to move a procedural motion. Can I suggest that we let the debate carry on? We have a vote on the first three items, and then we come back to consider the fourth item. And at that point, we consider a procedural motion, and that would be subject to the support of council.
Mr Mayor, could I just add something in relation to that procedural motion? Point 4 is really about noting something.
Yeah.
It's not about...
Is this a debate?
So it's either
on,
a case of
Yeah.
we don't note or we note. It's not like we're voting on carbon offsets or anything.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah, so we can,
I don't even know why we're entering into this conversation.
yeah, we're entering into it because I've been asked to consider a deferral, but we can debate the merits of that deferral, Councillor Hempel, and so we'll come to that. Councillor Callender.
Am I allowed to ask a question just in relation to the potential deferral or voting? You've made the commitment that it would be split out. Is it worth potentially putting it to a vote? I'm happy to foreshadow that if it fails, that we defer as an alternate motion.
Putting the entire motion to the vote.
The second part. So there's two elements.
Yeah.
1, 2 and 3 is one part.
Yeah.
Number 4 is the second part.
Yep.
If number 4 goes to a vote and it fails, I'm happy to foreshadow a deferral motion.
I think it'd be cleaner to consider the deferral first,
Okay.
and then we'll go from there.
Okay, no worries. Thanks.
So I'll come back. We've had our mover second to speak. Councillor Callender has spoken. Are there any other speakers to the motion? Are there any other speakers to the motion? No other speakers. Councillor Marston, I'll come back to you as the mover, and then we'll go through the process of splitting. And so if you'd like to close debate, and then we'll split the motion per Councillor Callender's request, vote on the first 3, and then consider the deferral. So Councillor Marston, I'll pass to you.
Thank you, Mayor Tyler. So the motion that we're considering now, the substantive motion of the first 3 points, doesn't suffer from the separation, and so I don't really have anything more to add, except to note that in the case of the motion, there was no mention of international offsets, so I think that's a red herring which we can safely ignore, and that we go to the vote on the first 3 points. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Marston. Ms Ikens, if I could get your assistance here to make sure everyone's clear what they're voting on in terms of what's on screen. So we're going to have a first vote on those 3 items. Yep. And so councillors, they're displayed on screen. And Councillor Callender, that reflects the items that you were seeking to have split. Yep. I will put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. I'll now come to you, Councillor Grimmer. I'm seeking a motion as it relates to deferral.
Thank you, Mayor Tyler. I just want to give a motion to defer this to a council briefing and then to another council chambers meeting. Thank you. Maybe if I can clarify which date, maybe next council. I'm prepared that I'm sure will be organised for the next council chambers meeting next month.
So to be clear, Councillor Grimmer, your motion is that the debate on this matter be adjourned and take place at the next council meeting. Is that right?
Yes, Mayor Tyler, and we might have to defer it to a July meeting because we might not have enough time.
Which is it?
July, I'm going to be clear because we've got the budget and we've got other, I believe this is, it should be considered ASAP, but I think July will be more prepared considering we've got the budget around the corner. Thank you.
So you're seeking to that the item be deferred to the council meeting, and I'll seek officers' advice, just the date of the meeting in July. The 9th of July. So if we can get that on screen. And so just so that we're clear, this relates to item 4, notes that Hobsons Bay City Council will be climate active, carbon neutral for 23-24 through the purchase of Australian offsets. And so, councillors, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
Point of order. I have my.
Councillor Hempel.
I was hoping we'd have some discussion about, because I'm quite clear that most people don't know what they're voting on here. As I said earlier, what we're voting on, whether we note that Hobsons Bay City Council, we're not voting on whether we purchase offsets, Australian offsets, international offsets, or whatever. If we're going to come back with this motion in 2 months' time, you'd have to question what we're doing. It's saying that we note what Hobsons Bay is doing. We're not taking any action, but just noting. I cannot believe we've got advice to even separate it out. All motions, the key word is the front word. It's a verb. Enters, delegates, notes. Why do we have to spend 2 months to come back to decide whether we note? If you vote it down, for example, you're voting not to note. And I don't think people understand in this room what we're actually voting on. And it makes a joke of the situation. Thank you. And I won't be voting for a deferral.
Okay. So I get, if councillors want to debate it, I will just go to the mover and then I'll come back. I appreciate why there's interest in debating it and before the vote. It's a procedural motion, but I recognise that, but I'm happy also for the views to be canvassed. So, Councillor Grimmer?
I'm aware what's going on. I just thought we needed, just my view, because it was split, I just felt like there might have been not issues addressed in this room, and I'm aware of that, so that we were just noting it, and that fact is that I was just making change only because it's a split. If it's going to be a big drama, because I'm aware of it, I did go to council briefing, I did look at it. I'm happy just to support that. We know that that's fine. I just thought we needed more time because of the split, that's all, and I was trying to be supportive and helpful to my colleague. That was all I was doing. Thank
so
you.
you're wanting to move this motion though, Councillor Grimmer? You're still wanting to move this motion to defer?
Look, I can, if the council group's not happy, no, I'm not. I was just trying to be supportive because if it's going to, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's withdraw that motion, and then we can return to the substantive item 4. And so I'll wait for that to be on screen.
Thank you. No, apologies, I just thought because it was split that we might have needed more time, that's all. I don't need more time.
So I'll put this final motion to the vote, which is now on screen. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Division has been called, and so I'll put the motion to the vote once again. All those in favour? Councillor Marston, Councillor Sutton-Legault, Councillor Hempel, Councillor Tyler, Councillor Briffa, Councillor Grimmer. All those against? Councillor Callender. Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, the next item is 8.4.1, permanent closure of the Esplanade, Altona, commencement of community consultation. Are there any questions? Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a series of questions. Can you please advise what this consultation will involve?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Callender. Consultation will be carried out in accordance with Section 223 requirements and will provide an opportunity for any interested person to provide a submission on the proposed closure of the road. Advertising via website, local paper and relevant social media communication channels will occur. Persons who wish to have their submission heard will be afforded the opportunity to do so at a future council meeting.
Thank you. Second question for you again, Mr Mayor. How can residents provide that feedback? So you mentioned through a future council meeting. So how would they actually provide any form of feedback?
Well, residents will be afforded the opportunity to provide written submissions either via post or email, and the details of how to do that will be provided during the advertisement in the local paper and on our website. And these submissions will be considered by council at a future council meeting if any persons wish to be heard to their submission.
Thank you. Next question. I notice that the next item on the agenda, item 8.4.2, awards the contract to start the work on the closure of the Esplanade. How will this consultation impact the allocation of that contract? And what are the risks and financial implications, if there are any?
Thank you for the question. I'll probably need to provide just a little bit of context before I get to the answer to your direct question. The contract to deliver the renewal and upgrade works for Altona Beach Entry and Esplanade upgrade is to be completed in 2 stages. The first stage, which is to occur during the winter period of 2024, will deliver improvement works along the foreshore, near the pier and main beach entry. The scope of this work includes new promenade pathways near the beach, realigned and raised seawall to meet forecast rising sea levels, 2 new terraced seating platforms, amenities such as seating, picnic settings, water fountains, bike parking and showering facilities, new shade structures and landscaping, including tree planting. The second stage comprises the actual closure of the Esplanade and associated amenity works with this, and this work is scheduled to occur during the winter period of 2025, 1 year later. And the scope of works includes new water play elements, new promenade walkways between Logan Reserve and the Life-Saving Tower, amenities such as seating, picnic settings, water fountains and bike parking, landscaping including tree planting and emergency access provision, in particular for ambulance and firefighting services. The contract has been set up via 2 separable portions approach and staggered via staging plan to allow for the Section 223 consultation process to occur. The delivery of the second stage of works is subject to Council's approval to close the road, which must occur in accordance with the Section 223 consultation process. Should Council decide not to proceed with the closure of the road following consideration of submissions during the consultation period, there is a mechanism within the contract to revise Stage 2 works to retain the opening of this road to traffic. However, Stage 2 has been designed with the closure included due to the general support received from community for the closure and associated works during years of informal consultation carried out on the project. The setup of the contract will provide Council with a strong mechanism to deliver the works along the foreshore whilst reducing risks associated with delays and cost overruns. Consideration of commencing the formal 223 process to close the road whilst at the same time awarding a contract will not impede Council in carrying out the consultation process or considering any submissions that may be received and provide a strong platform to proceed with the multi-stage project.
Thanks for providing that detail. I won't have to ask the question about work that will be done. You've already provided that for us. Has Council, through you, Mr Mayor, has Council completed an analysis on the impact to traffic flow? And if so, what are the findings?
Thank you again for the question. So traffic analysis has been completed and indicates the closure results in the increase of traffic of up to a maximum of 20% onto adjoining roads such as Pier Street, Bench Street and Queen Street. These increased traffic volumes can be accommodated within these roads and the environmental setup of these roads can accommodate that increase and does not significantly create any additional congestion issues in the precinct.
Thank you, and through you again, Mr Mayor, I know that we're doing further consultation, but has consultation been completed with first responders such as police, ambulance and fire brigade? And if so, what are the views that they hold on the permanent road closure?
Thank you again for the question, Councillor. So consultation has been held with emergency services operators who have provided support for the works. It also is noted that emergency access provision is also included in the design for access to ambulance and firefighting appliances in particular, particularly around access to the tower as required during emergency events.
Thank you. And final question. I understand that the total cost is approximately $10 million. Can you tell us how much will be funded by the state government and how much will be funded by ratepayers?
So the grant commitment from the state government is $5.8 million, with the remaining to be funded through council ratepayer money.
Yeah, great. No further questions, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Sutton, go.
Thank you very much for that detailed explanation. I'm still a little confused about why we're undergoing further community consultation when we talk about vast amounts of community consultation over the last few years, including social media, including online engagement, individual contributions from different parties. What is the point of additional consultation? We've already made the decision to close the road. We've recommended that it's proposed to permanently close this section of the Esplanade. That's the proposition, yeah?
Yeah, well, through you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Sutton-Legault. Whilst informal consultation has been carried out, for council to legally be able to close a road, they need to go through a formal 223 consultation process, and that's why this process is being put forward for council to consider. And in a section 223, council must call for any submissions of interested persons and consider those submissions before making a final determination to close the road. So at this point in time, whilst we are putting a plan forward to close the road, there has been no formal endorsement or approval of the council to close the road permanently at this point in time.
But at the same time, as my colleague said, we've got a proposal for a contract that includes closing the road.
Thank you again for the question. As per my previous answer, we have a contract that will deliver road closure works, but it has been set up with that second stage. Should council resolve, or whichever way council resolves, that second stage can be refined to either retain or either to put forward a closure of the road, or leave it open through and the provision of associated infrastructure works in that area.
So would it not make sense to remove that from the contract until the consultation is completed? And just have a contract? I know we're not talking about that point, but it's related. It seems counterintuitive to be still consulting when you're appointing a contractor, even provisionally.
That is an option, but my recommendation as an officer is to still proceed with awarding a contract with the two stages for the reasons that it will give the potential to reduce time delays, and also allow you a seamless opportunity to move forward should you close the road, but also noting that the way the contract has been set up and tendered, that there is the ability to to refine that second stage with limited reduction in risk to council if required during the second stage.
Why wasn't the consultation done earlier? This particular requirement, why wasn't that addressed earlier when we've been looking at this whole thing for years?
Probably one that I would need to take on notice, only sort of coming back into the fold in the last couple of days. It could have been done earlier, but it still is still an appropriate time to run this process, and that it won't either awarding the contract or running this process won't compromise either aspect of this project moving forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Briffa.
Yes, please, thank you. Just through you, Mr Mayor. Mr Irving, just to, we're all talking about the Section 223 and we're very familiar with Section 223s and what they mean, but maybe for the benefit of people listening to this, if you could describe what the Section 223 entails for us.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Briffa. A Section 223 process is a very formalised consultation approach that must be undertaken. It's very prescribed on the way that it must occur in terms of a council must advertise through a local paper and through its website, call for submissions. Those submissions must be heard by council, and that the council then must consider those submissions before making a final decision that is put before them. That is the main crux of a Section 223, and it is very, as I said, very prescribed a consultation
It is,
process
yep.
and very formal.
Yep. And do we have any proposed dates for when submissions would have to be lodged, and what process that would take in terms of hearing submitters that do want to be heard?
So the minimum requirement for advertising will need to be 28 days. So we'll be looking to progress forward to getting that period commenced ASAP. That 28-day period would then need to run. So I would envisage that potentially within 2 to 3 council meetings we'll be coming back for hearing of submitters should people wish. People don't have to be heard if they choose not to. And then a subsequent report come to council for consideration of those submissions, and then a final decision on the matter.
Okay. And just lastly, the hearing of those submissions, is that intended to be by a committee, by the whole council? Who's going to be hearing that, or has that been considered yet?
As I'm aware, I don't believe that this council has a Section 223 committee in place, and so as a result, the hearings would need to be before the entirety of the council.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Irving. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Briffa. Councillor Calendar. It's your mic.
Thank you. I've just got another question, given the questions that were asked. Just want to make it clear, if you could explain, are there any penalties involved if council does subsequently decide to withdraw the road closure, if their community consultation comes back and suggests that it should remain open? Are there any penalties?
Within the contract and the way it's been set up, there will be no penalties come before council, or no additional costs come before council, should that be the position it goes.
Any other questions, councillors? Seeking a mover. Councillor Calendar and a seconder. Councillor Briffa. I missed it. Councillor Calendar.
I think that a lot of questions have been asked on this, and it's helped give me comfort. More consultation is better than less, so happy to support this. And obviously, if anyone does have any concerns about road closure, or potentially support it being closed, also just get in touch, let us know, and make a formal submission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Calendar and Councillor Briffa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, look, I'm very happy to go to community consultation on this, and very much encourage people to get involved, particularly people in the local area who it affects most. Also consider, I'd love to hear feedback from people about what, if they do support it being closed, what they envisage for that area. I'd love for people to think about, other areas and what they've seen, perhaps, the Cairns foreshore around Frankston and other places, and think about, what that whole activation area might look like. Love to get feedback on that as well. Very much look forward to hearing from submitters. And I know that it's been a challenge. I mean, over the last few years, we've trialled it over summer, and it has made the place safer. I very much remember, when someone's life was taken through hooning in that area. So, and other activities. So look, I think it has made the area safer. Yes, I often hear complaints from people wanting to do the drive down the Esplanade, but most of the Esplanade is still open. And yes, there's a bit of a detour when it comes to Pearce Street, but most of the Esplanade is still drivable. So yeah, look forward to hearing from people. I'm very much keeping an open mind and look forward to those submissions. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. Are there any speakers against the motion? there any other speakers? I'll come back to you, Councillor Callender, as the mover.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't think that there's anything further to add other than simply saying again, contact us, let us know, make a submission if you are unhappy, but also let us know if you are happy. And as Councillor Briffa has said, share your reasons why and your visions for the space. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Happy to put it to a vote.
I'll do just that. All those in favour? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. The next item is 8.4.2, contract 2023.47, Altona Beach entry in Esplanade. Councillors, are there any questions? Seeking a mover? Seeking a mover, councillors, or the motion will lapse. Moved by Councillor Briffa and then seeking a seconder. Councillor Callender. Councillor Briffa.
Sorry about my delays. The agenda doesn't have bookmarks in it for some reason. I'm just scrolling. Yes, look, very happy to move this motion. It's great seeing investment in Foreshore and that whole precinct. So, and I just want to make sure that they start on time, finish on time, and if they can do it under budget, it's even better. But yeah, so very happy to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A series of questions have been asked on this topic as part of the prior agenda item. And I'd like to thank all councillors for asking questions as well to ensure that they obtain appropriate level of comfort around this. As was disclosed, a lot of money has been received from the state government on this piece of work, and I think that needs to be acknowledged. When you receive money from them, it's good to spend it. I'm comfortable to proceed given the information that's been received, and particularly noting that if there are any changes, that there won't be any penalties that arise as a result of that. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Callender. Are there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Sutton, go.
I will do it eventually, I beg your pardon. Just in relation to my earlier comments about, I feel that there's a contradiction between providing the contract and doing the consultation. It seems a little round the wrong way. So whilst I'm happy for it to go ahead, I can't support the allocation of the contract at this point.
Yeah.
Awarding the contract for the Altona Beach? Yeah.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I'll go back to you, Councillor Briffa, as the mover.
Sure, thank you. Yes, as I mentioned before, I'm very happy when I see investment in the local area. I love the Altona Sea Home Foreshore and just want to see it get better and better. I just think back when I was first elected and the amount of beach renourishment and other upgrades that we've seen to the area in that time. Great to see the state government also investing and supporting us with upgrades to the area. I think it's going to be great. I'd like to thank the community and council officers. I mean, I recall that we're going through the the urban design framework back in 2008 for the UDF for this whole area, and that was done in consultation with the community. We had a community group set up all for that. It included local community groups, the local traders, and all that sort of thing. And I just think about the improvements, and I love it when I hear people come to Altona that haven't been here before or haven't been here for some time, and they notice the amount of improvements to the area. And yeah, I think getting to the point about the contract, this contract isn't just for the disclosure. So, and I appreciate the commercial benefits of having this contract, noting that it is subject, that part of the contract is subject to the further decision of the council, which is subject to the consultation with the community. So we haven't preempted a decision. We're keeping an open mind. We're getting feedback from the community, both for and against, with ideas, suggestions, and all that sort of thing. We've got some artists, impressions, but yeah, I'm keen to hear from the community. It is not a fait accompli. So look forward to getting that. But once a decision is made, whether it's to proceed or not, we've actually got a contract in place so we can then proceed with the works, and we know that we don't have to go through the whole tender process again. We've been able to bid and get an effective commercially successful outcome. So it makes sense doing it this way, even though I'm sure there'll be people on social media that will criticise the council, and there'll probably be other people that will try and stir them up about it, but so be it. There is a logical reason why we're doing it this way. So happy to go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? And against? The motion is carried. I've had a division called, and so I'll put the motion to the vote again. All those in favour? Councillor Marston, Councillor Hempel, Councillor Tyler, Councillor Briffa, Councillor Grimmer and Councillor Callender. And against? Councillor Sutton-Legault. And the motion is carried. Councillors, the next item is Contract 2023.59 Altona Hockey Club Pavilion redevelopment. Are there any questions on the item? Seeking a...
So moved.
Mover. And secondary Councillor Callender. Councillor Briffa.
I was going to ask a question, and that was when can they start? But I won't. But then I just seized on the opportunity to move the motion. Look, I'm really pleased about this. The Altona Hockey Club are a great local club, do amazing work in the local community, and they support the diversity of our community as well, and have amazing days for recognising our First Nations people, LGBTIQA plus people, and all others. So they are a great group. They have long waited for this and been very patient in waiting for this. As have a lot of the clubs around the Altona Sporting Precinct. So look, I'm really pleased that this is now their turn, and very much look forward to the commencement of the works, but also importantly the works being finished and them getting back there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. Councillor Callender.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The club have waited a long time for this to happen, and it's now happening. I recall meeting with the club a number of years ago with Councillor Hempel during his tenure as mayor, and viewing the facilities that were dated and run down, change rooms that were not catered to women and girls, and storage facilities in rusted shipping containers. I have no doubt that they'll be eagerly awaiting the news on the contract finally being awarded tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Callender. Are there any speakers against the motion and any other speakers? Councillor Hempel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, happy to support this. It's, as we see in the report, it fits in with our sports needs analysis of 2018, which is something that I championed back a couple of years before that, few years before that, because we were doing an open space strategy and weren't looking at sports in its own right. And so we've come up with this strategy to do a lot of works around the municipality in relation to sports. In fact, we identify 100 million. If we allocate this one, I think we're up to about 70 odd, I think over 70 odd million being spent over the number of years, of which part of it comes from the state government. One of the things that I note in here is the modular construction, and I remember probably 6 or 7 years ago when I sought to make sure we got better use of our money, that we did look at modular pavilions. I know that the Altona Sports Club has a modular pavilion which they built next to their bowls club. You know, they are accepted, and a lot of other councils do use modular buildings, particularly for sports buildings. So I think this is a good outcome, and only pleased to have helped the club get to this point.
Thank you, Councillor Hempel. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Briffa, I'll go back to you as the mover.
Excellent, but it was remiss of me before not mentioning and congratulating Tracy Drake from the Hockey Club on being appointed as Hockey Victoria's chair as well. So that's an amazing coup for Tracy and the club. But yeah, look, very happy to support this. Yeah, let's get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously, and thank you, councillors. I joined the club, including Tracy, over the weekend just gone, and they've created something really special down there. To your point, Councillor Briffa, and they're thrilled that these works are going to go ahead and will make a big difference. And so, very enjoyable to spend a bit of time with them down there. Councillors, the next item is delegate reports. Are there any questions? Seeking a mover. Councillor Sutton, go. Seconded by Councillor Briffa. Councillor Sutton, go.
Just briefly, the Metropolitan Transport Forum is a monthly meeting attended by 26 councils in Melbourne, as well as representatives from transport-related organisations and advocacy groups like the Department of Transport and Planning. And we had various matters to discuss around strategic advocacy and council updates, and of course tunnels are a big part of that, and various connections. I have been on the Transport Forum since the start of the new year, and it's an interesting group to be part of. Transportation in all its forms is such an important responsibility across all areas of government, and we always seem to have challenges getting people where they want to go and in the right way. So it's good to have a forum like this to discuss these matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Go. Councillor Briffa.
Nothing further to add. Thanks.
Any speakers against the motion, and any other speakers? Councillor Sutton, go. I'll do just that. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Next item is notice of motion number 1252, Champion Road and Maddox Road level crossing removals. Councillors, are there any questions in relation to this item? I've got one question, and I'll put it to you, Mr. CEO, relating to, particularly for A and B, noting that council officers will have, at least in part, responsibility for implementing this. Just so that we're all on the same page, what can councillors expect to happen in response to what is in 4A and B?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the question. So just, I guess, reading out the item A as it's indicated in the papers. So a newsletter to every household in Newport, Williamstown and Altona North. The newsletter to include council discussions with pipeline operators, council findings on Maddox Road, traffic congestion, alternative options to LXRP proposal. So in that, I think there's a range of things that we would do in formalising or implementing this notice of motion at Part A, in developing the existing information that's already been developed by council, anything that can be shared with the community that is outlining the conversations that have been had and some of the detail about what we've learnt in those conversations, noting the level of support that and the advocacy that we've already made with the state government on the issue since the initial announcement was made and the subsequent notice of motion that that was initiated in the chamber by council. So a range of those options, including possible exploration around alternative options that council has been considering, and also the work of the community reference group and their explorations with council. So hopefully that addresses your question somewhat.
Thank you. I'll look to you, Councillor Hempel, to move the motion, and seeking a seconder.
So,
I'll just seek a seconder.
sorry, I haven't moved the motion yet.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think she has a question.
Yeah. Councillor Carter, question.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't have a question, but I'd actually like to make an alteration to this.
Mr Mayor, the one that's on the screen is not what's going to be, that I'm going to make some adjustments to, some minor adjustments.
So you've sent around an updated.
I've sent around an
Version.
updated version.
So let's do that
And I'm happy
first.
to deal with that.
Yeah.
The first point, just to tidy it up, should read, opposes any broad geographical area of planning controls to be put in place by the state government for the LXRP's Champion Road and Maddox Road level crossing removals. The second point should replace the second, oh no, it's got, yeah, no, it should replace the second word being the with any.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Sorry, Councillor Hempel, if I could just interrupt. The words we have captured and we're able to put up on the screen, would you like to have those updated, or would you like to read through them?
I'm suggesting that they be updated. And I see that the first one has been updated, first point. Second point now has been updated. The third point has been updated, and the fourth point has been updated. And point 5, I was suggesting.
I'm happy to talk to that one if that's okay. Can we?
Yeah, let's come to that.
Is that okay? Yep. We can cut that down. Can we simply say? I'll read this out slowly to whoever's typing. Also runs. So item 5 also runs a public campaign to advocate for the reinstatement of a train station in Altona North. I've got in brackets former Paisley Station. P-A-I-S-L-E-Y. Yep, station. Close brackets. On the Werribee train line.
So I'm happy to move that, Mr Mayor.
And happy to second.
I'll just ask one question, but before I come back to you as the mover, Councillor Hempel, just again so that we've got clarity, the addition as it relates to public campaign, just making sure we're on the same page as to what councillors can expect from that, noting that it will be in part implemented by officers.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think given the addition of the fifth item, it's fair to say that we'd take a similar approach to what I answered the previous question by, but we would also design what that campaign looked like to make sure that it does meet the the elements of both parts of the motion, noting that there's two campaigns that would be run concurrently, and we wouldn't want to confuse the community. So I think there'd be a range of steps that we would take to design that in implementing the motion, but I'd need to take some of that on notice.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Hempel, I'll come to you as the mover.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the time to get that tidied up a bit. I guess if I start, the LXRP have identified an extremely an unusually large planning project boundary that takes up all the streets and some of the council land in West Newport, Williamstown, Industrial Estate, parts of Williamstown, Altona North and Altona. It has about 80 streets and parcels of land. I've looked on the information that they've set out. It's quite extensive. I actually had to count the number of streets that I saw in there, and some of them don't make a lot of sense. I'm told that it is very, very unusual to set a project boundary like this. Certainly, and it goes probably hand in hand with that is the planning controls, and it's to do with the streets and possibly parts of that land. I'm told that, as I said, it's rather extraordinary to have such a large area. Usually it's just the rail corridor they work on, and certainly that was the case, I believe, with Ferguson Street level crossing removal project. It was basically the rail corridor. It didn't include the Ferguson Street shopping centre or the Douglas Parade shopping centre. Nothing as broad as that. I guess it'll mean, the way I understand it, the government will be able to do whatever they like along these streets. Any works that we need to do on our own streets, we would have to apply for permission from the state government, and that was confirmed at the meeting I attended with the CEO and Councillor Sutton ago on Wednesday. I approached the person who was answering some questions on the planning controls, and it was clear that we would have to seek approval on a whole lot of works. And that could potentially, well, that would mean the Maddox Road works that we had planned with the funding from the Transport Accident Commission. And my guess is that if you're a resident and you have a pothole in your street and they come to you to ask you to, the council to fix it, sounds like we'd have to go to the planning minister to get permission to do that work, which could end up delaying works for months. And so residents need to be aware of this. The Keep Champion Road Open Group have been told the LXRP wants to take over Quarry Reserve as a staging point for its equipment. So the equestrian centre would have to be relocated, and that would certainly anger the Williamstown Altona Horse and Pony Club, which paid for those facilities there, mind you, and that's one of the oldest pony clubs in the metropolitan Melbourne, and often runs state championships there. It's very much loved, that small equestrian centre. I believe they even do some riding for the disabled events there in the past. The Keep Champion Road Open Group has also been told the LXRP wants to take over the area along Ross Road as another staging point. That's an area where the council has spent a lot of money developing a car park for the Newport Mosque. It's an overflow car park because they don't have any space, and now that we've got a rugby facility at the nearby school, that's put a lot of pressure on parking in the area. So our Muslim community would have nowhere else to go if this takeover happened to occur. So this is about letting them know that the government, we would not support that. The last dot point gives the administration the impetus to start a real information campaign about what the LXRP is planning. So far, all the information that has gone out has been very one-sided, and people are getting it in their letterboxes. They actually think that's the council's supportive of the current proposal, and some even think that it is the council plan to shut off Champion Road. There's a lot of people that are a bit further away in Williamstown that continually ask me, what's going on? We don't understand. We're not being told by the council. So here's a real opportunity to get some real information out there. And I'm talking about real information. And I have to commend our officers. Some of them are no longer here, but they've done a lot of work in the last few months. One of the problems is the LXRP have been circulating, I call it propaganda to suit their case. One is that you can't relocate the pipelines at Champion Road crossing. We've had two of the major pipeline operators in, and they told us that they hadn't been consulted, and yes, you can relocate. And certainly for the important Avgas line supplying the Tullamarine airport with aviation fuel, relocation could be done quite seamlessly if it was done properly, and that comes from the operator itself. They're talking about maybe a delay of a week so, to do that sort of work, not the months and months and months that the government seems to propagate. And also at the forum last week, there was another pipeline operator, I think they were a pipeline operator, and he also said that yes, it's difficult and depends on the type of pipeline, but it could be relocated. That is definitely contrary to what the LXRP are telling people, and it's an outrageous lie to say that they cannot be removed. At last week's forum, the head of the LXRP said cost is not the reason why they are not doing what the locals want, and that is to look at other options. Because Ms. Gannon, Jill Gannon, who runs the Keep Champion Road Open Committee, passionately said that the government is doing this, but couldn't be, there'd be a great cost to the community, and we the community will live for it for years afterwards. But then I was heartened to hear that the LXRP head said that cost is not the reason. Cost doesn't come into it, so maybe they need to spend the money and get it right. I'm mindful of time. I guess we have enough information about the closure of Champion Road, and we looked for other alternatives, as the CEO has said. But also our council recently had a report to this council meeting to say that the impact on the flow to Maddocks Road is quite enormous, and currently it is almost at capacity anyway, so diverting traffic down there is not the option. So I guess we need to make sure that people are informed. We need to make it clear that the LXRP is not consulted with the council. It's talked at us, I think, but not consulted. And we also should make the point that the government should be putting this project on the back burner so that we can spend some time in getting the planning right. It's being rammed through to the detriment of the community, and we need to get some information out there to counter some of the rubbish that's being propagated by the LXRP. Thank you. I think that, and then, sorry, there was one last point. At the forum last week, there was one guy there who's on their own committee and questioned, why do we need to remove the boom gates? If this is the option of the Champion Road being closed, let's just keep them open, forget about the project, and it'll save the government a lot of money, which they probably need right at this point in time, and it wouldn't make any difference to the government's case at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hempel. Just before I come to you, Councillor Calendar, as a seconder, Councillor Hempel, I'm just going to propose, there's just a minor typo in number 2, and so I think we just need to add the words after reserve as a staging point. and I think that should just be one.
Yes, you're right, it should be,
One
somebody's
V
got
in
lost
staging.
when I typed it out.
You happy with that, Councillor Hempel?
That's the intention.
Councillor Calendar.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll start by saying here, Councillor Hempel. The Keep Champion Road Open community group have really taken the lead on a campaign that opposes the permanent closure of Champion Road. I think that council needs to do more to share information and advocate against the permanent closure of this. So I'm glad to see Councillor Hempel table this notice of motion tonight. I'm shocked, absolutely shocked, to hear about the intended removal of planning controls over a large area of Hobsons Bay. I feel that it's government overreach. And then there's the use of land, which would result in the loss of car parking to the mosque on Ross Road as well. I oppose it, and I know that residents in the vicinity of the mosque and residents who visit the mosque would not be happy with this impact to parking. Why would I support handing over control of planning to the government who hasn't listened to us in respect of the Champion Road level crossing removal? Almost 2 years ago, we were told that Champion Road level crossing would be closed. There was no consultation. And even though they've since consulted, I use the word consult loosely, nothing has changed, and they've completely disregarded the campaign to keep it open. The plans are still to permanently close it. On the flip side, one thing that we do support is the reinstatement of former Paisley train station on the Werribee line. This has been resolved and supported by council repeatedly over the years. The railway track infrastructure already exists. The station was closed back in the 1980s by a government who was not forward thinking. With all the money that's being spent on level crossing projects in Hobsons Bay, it's a good time to remind the Minister for Transport and Infrastructure of where we actually want money spent. Don't close Champion Road and instead reopen the former Paisley train station. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Calendar. Are there any speakers against the motion? Any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Grimmer. Yeah, I'll go to you and then I'll come to...
Thank you, Mayor Tyler. I also want to acknowledge and thank Councillor Hempel. Prior to former Mayor Hempel was working on this issue, and including former Mayor Briffa. I know and your continuation is notable. Thank you, Hempel, for bringing this to the table. We are in a unique situation. We do have our MP that does not want Champion Road. This one does not want that closed. But it is alarming that you have an MP, you've got the council group still championing this, and it's still going on. I think it's just pretty disgusting. And there's lack of consultation. In my local community, we had similar situations, and it was done poorly, and I'm surprised this is still occurring. You've got a lot of issues that Councillor Hempel has raised. You know, with our Newport Mosque, they've lobbied for parking for years and they've got it, and now that could be up in the air. Just the trade, no one's consulting traders, residents, but also people who aren't locals but utilise these facilities. We are not consulted. This is pretty poor and not okay. So hopefully, I'm proud that the council group, and I'm happy with this, supporting this, because we do need more consultation. People are working really hard to, support our community, have resources, and this is just lacking. And finally, with the Paisley Park, former Paisley Station, I think, we do need to champion that. It's been championed for many years. Something needs to be done. We're told, let's use public transport. Well, you need to help us. And this is the way to go. So thank you. And this is a great one. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grimmer. Councillor Sutherland, go.
Thank you, Councillor Hempel. Yes, it's a textbook example of how not to consult. I would say that everyone should take a lesson in this, that if you go out with your final result your intended result before you consult, then you're not consulting. To say that you can change things is clearly not the case. No one is listening to us, and if they are, nothing is changing. So I think, if anyone is going out with an information campaign, it is really just to tell us what is going to happen and make us, to try and settle us all down, rather than actually getting anything to change. So I think it's a real lesson in how not to do public consultation. Will have a significant, I will declare my interest, I live just off Champion Road, but it's going to have a direct impact in cutting our community in half by closing the road. And when you're in an area that has mainly kind of 4 roads in and out, cutting a road, such a significant road to a major part of our community, is really a significant thing. It's not just about the level crossing, it's about our capacity to connect with each other geographically and through transport, and I think that just hasn't been thought through at all. And the option of Maddox Road will just increase the amount of traffic, making it very difficult to turn right or left in that area, already on a very busy road. So again, I don't think this has been thought through. I don't think that the consultation campaign has been really very useful for us, but I applaud everybody who's put in the effort to make their voice heard, and I suspect when it becomes known that there is the intention to take over some of these other spaces, we may hear other voices equally loud, and I hope that their voices will ultimately prevail. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault. Any other? Yeah, Councillor Marston.
Thank you, Mayor Tyler. I'd just like to comment on point 3. In addition to the loss of car parking, there's also the potential loss of the use of the Ross Road connection from Blenheim through Mill Street, which is on track to be a really important bicycle linkage that connects Newport and Millers Junction. It's one of the few ways you can get to Millers Junction safely from the Newport area or parts further east, and I'm afraid that any closure of that corridor will result in a significant delay to the implementation of that rail cycling corridor. It's very difficult to ride a bike to Millers Junction because of the overpass at the Paisley station, and also the situation on Millers Road, which makes it quite dangerous, particularly for diffident or inexperienced cyclists to navigate the area in such a way as to get to the Millers Junction precinct. And so we have to really preserve that corridor, I think, for not only car parking, not only access to the soccer club, but also walking and cycling safely between the eastern part of the municipality to the central. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marston. Are there any other speakers? Yeah, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, it's a terrible situation really, but I do want, I guess, to mention some positives, and that is the Keep Champion Road Open group are just amazing local group, and Jill and the rest just do an amazing amount of work, really engage the community. I think the local MP in Melissa Horn has been fantastic as well, and she's really worked very closely with Keep Champion Road Open group and Jill, and even to the point where Minister Horn had Jacinta Allen attend and go for a drive and see the local area as well. So I think that was really positive. I'd like to think that I'm confident that Minister Horn will continue to support the local community and that local group and work with us. It's very unfortunate that LXRA and that just are not listening. So, yeah. And as for Paisley Station, or the Alternative North train station, everyone knows it's something that I've been advocating for 15, 16 years. Mr Mayor, we moved a motion back in 2021 about this, and it's been, it's mentioned in our Hobsons Bay Activity Centre strategy, in our community services and infrastructure plan, and all sorts of documents. So it's not policy on the run. It's something that we've long sought advocacy for and support for by the state government. So it's good to see that we'll continue doing that, and we'll be part of we'll have this as part of the campaign regarding Champion Road. So with that, I'm very happy to support that motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. Councillor Hempel, I'll come back to you as the mover.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in relation to some of the points that my colleagues have raised, might start with the last point that Councillor Briffa made in relation to our local member, Melissa Horn. I get the feeling that it's out of her control. It's basically the Premier and the Minister and maybe the Treasurer that call the shots. One of those lives locally, by the way. As for the planning controls, choice on the planning controls, the planning minister will just take that away from us. I guess the key thing that we need to be arguing for is to make sure that it's confined to the rail corridor. You know, why does the planning controls have to be so wide, particularly as determined by the project planning boundaries? And just reiterate one other point, no consultation. It took the LXRP 1 year and a few days to actually come to the council and front up. So that's the first time we've officially been told by them that this is what we're doing. We're closing your record. They didn't have the gumption to come and tell us directly. And as for coming back to the broad area, I was, Councillor Sutton ago was talking about her place, and I noticed some of the reserves. If I knew the address, I was just trying to check to see whether the nature reserve outside her house might have some heavy equipment parked there overnight. I couldn't quite tell because I couldn't. But you'd have to question why they need to take control over a whole lot of council land. It doesn't make any sense. And then potentially kick out a pony club, which I think is appalling. So, and I should note that in this chamber, only a meeting or two ago, I said that I was approached by a company to do a survey on the Champion Road closure. That same company only approached me yesterday again, and I said I asked for my name to be removed off the list the last time. She was very apologetic, but I don't know why the LXRP put me on the survey. I mean, they should know my view by now. I will leave it at that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hempel. Councillors, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously. Councillors, the next item relates to urgent business. Are there any items of urgent business to be raised? Councillor Sutton-Legault.
I'd like to propose a matter of urgent business for tonight's meeting in response to the recent terrible violence against women and the subsequent public outcry. I'm asking that council officers write to the Premier of Victoria asking for urgent action to reduce the number of women killed by violence each day, produce a report on effective measures taken by council in the past 4 years, and plan future action to reduce the impact of violence against women in Hobsons Bay, identifying how council has responded as a signatory to the 2030 Western Region Strategy to prevent violence against women.
Councillor Sutton-Legault, thank you. We will seek to get that motion up on the screen. Just while that occurs, I will need to declare a conflict of interest in relation to the motion, and it relates to my work with Jesuit Social Services, which seeks to prevent men's violence against women. That work includes work with council and has historically included work with Hobsons Bay, and your motion refers to plan future action. And so given that, I will step out of the room for this discussion. And so before seeking a seconder, ordinarily, of course, the Deputy Mayor would assume the chair. You're moving the motion. And so I would like to seek a procedural motion from councillors for the most recent mayor, Councillor Briffa, to assume the chair, and so I'm looking for a motion for that to occur.
So moved, and following that, I'd like to move that we extend time to 10 o'clock.
No worries. So we might do that one first, and then I'll step out, and Tony, Councillor Briffa can step in.
Could we perhaps reverse it then?
Reverse it, yeah.
And,
Do you want to move that?
yeah,
Councillor Marsden?
that we extend meeting time until 10 o'clock, first of all.
Yeah, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour, motion is carried unanimously. Thank you.
And then move that
Sorry, Councillor Marsden.
for former mayor, immediately past mayor, Councillor Briffa, assume the chair.
Thank you. Just before I put that to the vote, Mr. Sam,
Check that we have a motion to accept an urgent item of business.
that's going to be something that I can't preside over that. So we'll just make sure that the procedural motion is clear. Could you perhaps say that again, Councillor Marsden, just so that we can get that on screen?
Sorry.
I move that the immediate past mayor, Councillor Tony Briffa, assume the chair in the mayor's absence.
Thank you, Councillor Marsden. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously, and so I will step out.
It is so much easier doing this without a frock on. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So the item is, we seek a motion to hear an item of urgent matter, urgent business relating to gender-based violence.
Happy to move that.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that procedural motion? Councillor Grima. We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Then we go to the motion, and do we have that on the board? No, we don't. So, Councillor Sutton-Go, if you could perhaps
Certainly.
read your motion.
I'd like to propose that council officers write to the Premier of Victoria, the Honourable Jacinta Allen MP, asking for urgent action to reduce... Oh, it is up there now.
It is up there now.
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
that's right.
That's it.
So I'll read it out then. That council writes to the Premier of Victoria, the Honourable Jacinta Allen MP, asking for urgent action to reduce the number of women killed by violence each day. 2, produces a report on effective measures taken by council in the past 4 years and planned future action to reduce the impact of violence against women in Hobsons Bay, identifying how council has responded as a signatory to the 2030 Western Region Strategy to prevent violence against women, and 3, creates a public statement deploring male violence against women and feature this prominently on the council website and in public spaces, including libraries. And you're moving that, Councillor Sutton-Go?
Yes, please.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Callender. Councillor Sutton-Go, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. This is an unusual situation to move this as a matter of urgent business, and I recognise that. But following our briefing this week and after reading again about all of the violence that's been happening around the country and of course around the world, and as well as in Hobsons Bay, I felt it was important that we raise this as a council issue. We are the body closest to the community in terms of government, so therefore I chose to raise it this evening. Nationally, the rate of women's violent deaths has accelerated to 1 every 4.5 days this year. By April, 5 women in Victoria died after assaults, mostly by people they knew. And we are all sadly aware of the people, including a baby, who were injured or killed in the shopping centre atrocity in Bondi. Other incidents have been reported in Hobsons Bay over time. If we want a world where no women die through violence, we need to change. And now, I grew up in a home where my mother and my sisters were affected by my father's frustration, which led to violence. At that time, there was no one he could talk to about his worries, about his 3 young daughters, his challenges finding work, his problems with alcohol. He took that frustration out on my mother. So we must find other ways and provide services to help men deal with these issues that do not involve violence against women. Women make up 50% of Hobsons Bay's population, and 50% of them say they do not feel safe walking down the street at night. And we live in a very safe community compared with many others. As a community, everyone has the right to feel safe at home, in the street, in shopping centres, in a church. And local council, being the level of government closest to local community, we do have a responsibility to do everything we can to reduce and ultimately eliminate the acts of and impacts of violence against women. It's of course an economic question as well. If we really pay women equally and not just talk about it, then they will have more stake, we will have more stake in our community and be able to buy or rent our own homes and potentially leave abusive relationships. We still have a gender pay gap of nearly 22%. So for every dollar, on average, a man makes, a woman earns 78 cents. It's good to see that in the just announced federal government budget, the salaries of childcare workers will be increased because 97% of them are women. And they've also pledged a further $1 billion to combat violence against women. However, violence against women continues and includes psychological, economical, emotional, and sexual abuse. And believe it or not, in Victoria, intimate partner violence is the leading contributor to death, disability, and illness for women aged 15 to 44, which is really quite astonishing. So women of all ages, cultures, backgrounds, and economic situations can experience violence. Now, while it's deplorable, it's preventable by addressing the underlying causes of violence against women. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. We are good people, and we can do something to change our behaviour towards women. If you feel in immediate danger, call 000. If you need wider help, call 1-800-RESPECT, that's 1-800-737-732, or visit safesteps.org.au. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault. And the seconder is Councillor Calendar.
Thank you. I echo the words of Councillor Sutton-Legault. I read some horrific statistics recently that in Victoria, 39% of women have experienced physical or sexual violence since the age of 15. And national statistics indicate that in Australia, 1 woman died violently every week, and this has now increased to a death every 4 days. It's horrible. Lately, it feels as though every time you switch on the TV or the radio, there's news of another woman who's been murdered, stalked, targeted, stabbed, or sexually assaulted. Oh, God. I know way too many women who have been victims of domestic violence. I'm sorry. Sexual assault and rape, both by men who are known to them and unknown to them, and it has lifelong impact on these women. So I'm supporting this motion for them. It sucks as a woman to never feel like you're truly safe. Even at home and in public shopping centres, the news of aggravated assaults, carjackings, home invasions and knife crime, and that poor little baby that was stabbed while her mother died, and those 2 men who... I can't even speak. Oh my God. I'm lucky that I have a good husband, that even when I leave the house, he asks me to be safe, and it's not because of anything that I would do, but because you never know what others would do to you. You know, I've experienced things here in Hobsons Bay with, you know, people exposing themselves, people trying to coerce you into a car, and I'm sure that if I reached out to the women in this room, they'd be able to share their own experiences as well. While it was great to see our female Premier attend the recent rally against violence against women, she's the best person in the position who can actually implement some form of policy change. So I support writing to her to ask her to act, and
I apologise for the emotion tonight, but I think it's highly necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Calendar. Any speakers against this motion? I do have to ask. Okay, any other speakers for this motion? Councillor Greenman.
Thank you, Mayor. No, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Briffa. I echo what my council colleagues. Thank you for sharing this, and I think it was a responsible and much-needed move from the deputy to put this as an urgent business, because it is a crisis. It's a crisis in our homes, our aged care facilities. I've single-handed have seen this. I'm very privileged that I come from friends and my husband, my father, who's just great role models. So I recognise also my colleagues here who are male, who are just have been great mentors. I've been married to former Hempel, was a great mentor. Marsden, you are too, and Councillor Mayor Tyler, who've been very proactive and support women. But it is, and I recognise that men also deal with, and males deal with violence, as we heard the tragedy that struck in Sydney. So I want to acknowledge that, but it is going backwards. I just heard a statistic a few years ago when I was at my workplace at the aged care facility. It was 6 or 7 females every week. Now it's 4 females every week. It's really appalling. It's disgusting that we still have financial abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. We can't even be safe in our workplace. When we go for a walk, when we pick up our kids, when we meet our parents or our friends, we just don't feel safe, and it doesn't matter what time it is, which is very sad. So I hope the government, and I did listen to the government talk about things. I think it needs to be addressed in our schools. I think it needs to be addressed everywhere, and it's just a very sad situation that we're seeing more increases with much more equal opportunity, which we need more equal opportunity for women, that this is still happening. I feel like as a woman we are going backwards. So thank you to the Deputy for bringing this to the motion.
Any other speakers? Councillor Marsden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a shame that the Mayor's not here, because this is his day-to-day work, working with men and boys, and particularly to overcome the toxic, the unhelpful man box culture, where the range of allowed emotions that boys can express is severely constricted, and I think this results in not only emotional illiteracy, which is very familiar to me from my childhood, but also a sense of shame and anger that accompanies that. And under times of pressure, particularly in the home, that can result in murderous violence or coercion or other forms of abuse. And I think that is deeply regrettable. I think with a more expansive way for men and boys to act, this might take some of the potential for such explosive rage and violence to be mitigated. It's a generational issue. I think it's something that we can work through as council. Everyone speaks here very passionately and knowledgeably about the reality of violence against women and girls, because it is so prevalent and because it is so familiar. And I want to thank the women here tonight for speaking about their experiences, but I equally want to recommit myself to modelling and understanding how boys themselves can learn to express their feelings, can overcome that ability to talk, and when faced with conflict or pressure, don't resort to murder.
Or any violence.
Or any violence whatsoever, including coercion or financial abuse and all the other associated methods of control, which are so prevalent and well studied,
Exactly.
and which create misery and psychological harm to women and girls.
Thank you, Councillor Marsden. Any other speakers? Councillor Hemphill.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'd also like to commend Councillor Sutton-Legault for bringing this forward. I'd also like to point out that there was one serious incident, and I know there have been others around, but a very well-known incident in Altona North where a woman was being attacked and a Good Samaritan came in and then ended up that he got killed. And that was very sad. I know the family, and I know that the hurt that happened, and I know what that family went through, particularly being interrogated by the police. It is a serious issue, and it is on a doorstep, I guess, the point I'm trying to make, and I commend my colleagues for what they've said tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Hemphill. Well, there being no other speakers, I'll go back to the mover. Councillor Sutton-Legault.
Thank you. So in asking to write to the Premier, I recognise that it is at all levels of government that we can take action, and I hope that being a new Premier, she sees this not quite as an opportunity, but as a way to show her leadership in an area where so many women, 50% of the population, want to see change. And this is not just a sort of ambit, can you just sort of, you know, have a look at this. We need to see real change happen. And in producing a report, it helps us understand what has been happening at a council level and what will happen in the future, and whether, unfortunately, sometimes the most horrific events create the most change. And perhaps that's something for us to consider, how it is reflected in our strategies. And then making that a public statement where we condone violence against women, and we make it clear that it's something we won't accept. I see we have plenty of notices around, of course, saying we don't want, you know, our staff should not be offended or assaulted or injured in any way, and it's an absolutely appropriate thing to do, and I think we should make sure that the same is true about how the public and everyone else deals with women. So hence the request of this motion. I just finally say, you know, there is an old saying that the best time to have planted a tree was 50 years ago, or today. So I think the same idea is true if we want to create a violence-free world where women feel safe in their homes and in their community. We should have done it 50 years ago, but we're still dealing with it now. So let's do something today. And I hope it will happen quickly. And if we do act today, our daughters, our granddaughters, our nieces, wives, mothers, girlfriends, aunts, grandmothers will thank us. And it's our legacy that we leave to future women. And that's, you know, that's what you hope. You hope to make that change happen for generations in the future. So what can each of us do? I mean, we need money for services to pay women equally, and I hope our premiers and Prime Minister will continue to act and invest. But each of us can do something. We can pause for 1 second before responding to situations that could raise a woman up. So respond, don't react. Pause before we react with anger towards any woman. Pause before we choose not to select a woman for promotion. Pause before we do not accept a woman's right to choose. Pause before we reject flexible hours for a working woman. Pause when we consider developing yet another film or TV show depicting women as victims of violence. Pause before we believe that violence is a valid response to women's existence. In that pause, you choose another path. We take action that raises women up, supports our lives and our safety, and invests in ways that deal with issues that create the anger that leads to the violence and the discrimination. We can all lobby all levels of political government and all community organisations to do more, and each of us can do something, and we can each do it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton-Legault. So we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? That is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you. And if I may just say, yes, I certainly have experienced domestic violence. It's amazing how even a strong person can put up with and have that shame of not getting out. but people shouldn't feel shamed. And whatever we do as a council, it needs to be intersectional. So I think about the violence that trans women, queer women, Indigenous women, Muslim women, women with disabilities, that they all experience. So thank you. I'll hand back to Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Prefer, and thank you, councillors. I'm sorry to miss that discussion. That's right, and yeah, it's very, obviously by virtue of where I spend my time with work, I think it's a very important issue you've raised, Councillor Sutton-Legault, so thank you for doing that. Are there any supplementary questions that we've received? No worries. With that, I will bring the meeting to a close at 9:46. Thank you, councillors, thanks to members of the public gallery, and thank you for those who are tuned in online. Have a good night.